All right, let's start with the big story that we're tracking on WION at this hour, where the United Nations, believe it or not, it's the United Nations that we're talking about, may run out of money by the end of this month. And this, according to the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Now, the international body is currently running at a deficit of almost about $230 million US. And this was mentioned in a letter addressed to the 37,000 employees at the United Nations Secretariat. Guterres said that some unspecified additional stopgap measures will have to be taken to ensure salaries and entitlements are paid. Now, the United Nations Secretary General wrote, and I quote him here, "Now, member states have paid only about 70% of the total amount that is needed for our regular budget operations for the year 2019. And this translates into a cash shortage of $230 million at the end of September. We run the risk depleting our backup liquidity reserves by the end of this month." Antonio Guterres has also mentioned postponing conferences, meetings and restricting official travel to cut down on its costs. Now, given the current situation, the international body could go broke by the end of October. Now, the United Nations Secretary General had earlier asked the member states to increase their contributions to avoid cash flow problems, but the members reportedly and very interestingly refused to do so. Now, the United Nations budget for the year 2018-2019 is said to be about $5.4 billion, with the United States contributing about 22%. All right, let's now get you the latest that is unfolding at the Syrian-Turkey border. And believe it or not, the fallout of this is, according to a decision that's been announced by U.S. President Donald Trump. And he has now warned Turkey against hurting U.S. soldiers during Turkey's operation in northeastern Syria. Now, according to Trump, if any U.S. soldier were to get hurt, then big trouble will follow. Listen to what the U.S. President had to say.
You know, Syria was supposed to be a short-term hit, just a very short-term hit, and we were supposed to be in and out. That was many, many years ago, and we only have 50 people in that area. That's a small sector, and I don't want those 50 people hurt or killed or anything. I don't want anything bad to happen to our people, and I told that to President Erdogan. I said, don't hurt any of our people get hurt. Big trouble.
All right, so that was the announcement by the President Donald Trump, but the real scene of action is unfolding on your screens here, and this is in northeastern Syria, and this shows the U.S. troops withdrawing from the region, opening the door for a Turkish military onslaught onto the Kurds. Now, the U.S. withdrawal will leave the Kurdish-led forces, the YPG forces in Syria, that have been such close allies of the United States in the fight against the ISIS, vulnerable to a planned incursion by the Turkish military, which interestingly brands the Kurdish YPG forces as terrorists. Now, many of the U.S. military bases, like the ones that you're looking at on your screens near Tel Arham, have now been completely evacuated after the withdrawal. The Kurdish forces have denounced the U.S. decision, and they've called it a betrayal. They've said that it is a stab in the back by the Americans. Now, even as the global outrage continues over the United States' double stand, Donald Trump has reiterated that his decision was a firm one and that it was something that he had been mulling over for at least the last 9 months. Listening to what the U.S. President had to say.
I was going to do this 9 months ago, and we were not at 100%, but we were pretty close. Everyone said, can we get to 100%? Now I get to 100%. And they say, well, maybe we could stay longer. I say, well, when do we get out? There's got to be a time we get out. We have to bring our people back home. And frankly, our great soldiers, I've been talking about this on the campaign. You go back 3 years ago and more, and you watch the speeches. We want to bring our soldiers back home. These are the endless wars.
All right, now, the president had earlier appeared to mellow his position on the troop withdrawal. Trump's tweet warned Turkey of complete economic obliteration if the U.S. troops were to come under attack. Now, the White House also held a press briefing on this issue. The Trump administration has said that it will not support or endorse any Turkish military action on the Kurds, and that the troops were not being withdrawn per se. Now, the president has also decided to relocate the U.S. troops to different bases when he learned about the planned Turkish onslaught. Now, what is interesting is that the Americans have almost about 1,000 troops stationed in Syria, but they are planning to pull out just about 50, and that too from the northeastern Syrian region. Now, according to the White House, Turkey would be made responsible for any humanitarian issues during the proposed operation, and Ankara will also have to take responsibility for the ISIS fighters who have currently been imprisoned by the Kurdish YPG forces. Now, Turkey has said that the United States, which supports the Syrian Democratic Forces, was moving too slowly to set up the buffer zone. It has repeatedly warned of launching an offensive on its own into northeastern Syria, where the US forces have been stationed alongside their allies, the Syrian Democratic Forces. Now, remember, the NATO allies agreed in August to establish a safe zone in northeastern Syria along the border with Turkey. Now, Ankara has said that the zone should be cleared of the YPG. Now, Turkey has said that it wants to settle almost about 2 million Syrian refugees in the zone. It presently hosts at least 3.6 million Syrian refugees, the highest in the world, from Syria's more than 8-year-long conflict that began in 2011.